Hello, this is Stephen Dominguez, the S in the BS Podcast Network. Please enjoy this fine podcast.
Will you go back to Gotham for long, sir?
As long as it takes. I'm going to show the people of Gotham their city doesn't belong to the criminals and the corrupt.
In the Depression, your father nearly bankrupted Wayne Enterprises combating poverty. He believed that his example could inspire the wealthy of Gotham to save their city.
Did it?
In a way, their murder shocked the wealthy and the powerful into action.
People need dramatic examples to shake them out of apathy, and I can't do that as Bruce Wayne. As a man, I'm flesh and blood. I can be ignored, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol, I can be incorruptible. I can be everlasting.
What symbol?
Something elemental, something terrifying.
I assume that as you're taking on the underworld, this symbol is a persona to protect those you care about from reprisals.
You're thinking about Rachel?
Actually, sir, I was thinking of myself.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
Who are you?
My name is Bond. I'm Batman.
Name's Bond. James Bond.
I'm Batman.
Bond. James Bond.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
This is the Batman vs. James Bond show. The show covering everything related to Batman and James Bond movies. And now, here's your host, Brian Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to an all-new episode of the Batman vs. James Bond show. The name's Thomas, Brian Thomas, and I am your host. And this is the show where we discuss everything related to Batman and James Bond movies. It is great to be back. Oh, yeah, happy Tuesday. Whenever you're listening to this episode, it is January 9th at the time of recording, which is the day the episode will come out. It is cold as you-know-what. Stay tuned for the Mr. Freeze weather report. We'll put it that way because it's something. I know I'm jumping all over the place already, but I started this new thing maybe for 2018. Maybe I'll keep it up because some people seem to get, had that sense of humor that I do as well. And, we have a new meteorologist here. I told you big things were coming to the Batman vs. James Bond show. One is the addition of our new meteorologist. That would be Mr. Freeze, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, none other. And, look out for those posts on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And, Mr. Freeze will have his weekend forecast for you. And let me just say, in the Baltimore, D.C. area right now, it is approximately probably about maybe 30. I think it reached maybe 30, maybe 40 some degrees today, give or take. And we'll just say 40 degrees. We'll ballpark it there. But yesterday it was nothing but ice. Walking out to the cars, it's nothing but ice. Wherever you are in the world, if you do experience winter, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you that live in the Caribbean, like my in-laws, a winter usually involves 84-degree weather, and let me just say, if I didn't say last week, I'm missing that 84-degree weather right now. I truly, truly am, because we're hitting record lows here, and I think the lowest so far has been maybe 9 degrees in the morning or so, and I'm just like, I'm bundling up. I almost want to break out my Daniel Craig kind of like my beanie, and I want to break out the Skyfall coat that he had, or no, I'm thinking the Spectre look that he had there when he was going to visit Miss White, because that's pretty much how I feel like I have to bundle up every single day, put on the scarf, wrap around my face, and, it's just, it's cold winter, guys, and I know, suck it up, right, Brian? Anyway, I hope all of you have had a fantastic week. Mine was really great. Might I say it involved a lot of, what does winter mean, but just kind of vegging out and just kind of taking it easy especially on the weekend, because it's too cold to go outside and do anything. There's really nothing out to buy right now. There are things to watch, and I will actually get into that a little later on in the show. But just a reminder before we hop into things, BatmanVSBond.com. That's right, you know its name. Go there for the latest shows and more content. You can also find the Batman vs. James Bond show on the BS Podcast Network. That's bspodcastnetwork.com. Find my show and a whole bunch of other shows on there. Now, right before I begin, I did want to make like a programming note anyway, that, yes, there really are changes. I'm not just teasing that just for the sake of hearing myself say, hey, there's changes coming. No, there really are changes coming, and I'm still getting some things organized. Okay, if you're patient, good things to those who wait. I think that's how it goes anyway. But getting some ideas. The ideas are there. Actually, that's the good thing. It's just it's scheduling, and it's not just my schedule. Okay, so there's another tease there now. Yes, I might have, Bruce Wayne formed his own Justice League, okay? James Bond really doesn't, I mean, you could say that he relies on the, was it the Whitehall team, where it's M, Q, and Moneypenny, so that he's kind of got his team there. So we'll just say that I'm calling in support, okay? I'm calling in the big guns. I'm calling in some help, okay? And I think that, when you hear what's going to be happening in the next month or so on this show, I think you all are going to be very delighted. Teased it before that, there are definitely going to be more reoccurring guests on this show. Yes, I'm still going to be here. I'm sorry to break the news. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. Not as of now. I know that another podcast, who actually will be, two hosts will be joining me on here, would like to try to take over this podcast, and maybe they'll have their way and they can start doing the show. No, I'm kidding. We'll see. They're a bunch of great guys, and yes, I'm talking about the guys over at Take Two. Shout out to Brian, Craig, and the rest of the crew over there. Brian and Craig will be possibly joining me hopefully in the next couple weeks, I hope. And in a couple weeks, I know positively in a couple weeks, programming note on January 22nd, we'll be celebrating a birthday on this episode for none other than Christian Bale. Nick from Nick and Vince's podcast will be joining me. He will be the first of one of the reoccurring guests that will be on this show. We're going to be talking a lot. We're going to dedicate the whole episode to Christian Bale anyway. We haven't really talked about his interpretation of Batman in such a long time, and other movies that he's done. I know we did an episode a while back about movies that we like that are other than Batman or James Bond that the actors have done. So I want to kind of retouch on that to a point. There's a whole bunch of other things that, like I said, are in the works. I'm going to stop the tease right there, but just be patient. Okay, I will deliver. Okay, like unlike the Justice League movie last year, I actually will deliver. Okay, I promise you that. And to the fans out there that like the Justice League, more power to you. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying it could have been better. There you go. Anyway, all right, let's hop into it, guys. Lots of news came out this week, and it actually worked out better this way. This is more of a newsworthy show, anyway. So right now, speaking of the Justice League and Warner Brothers, what's going on with them? That's been the question lately. I mean, because after this, we don't know much about when. I mean, the only DC movie property that I know of that comes out this year is currently Aquaman. And while I like Jason Momoa's Aquaman, I can't say it's like, well, I'll probably go see Aquaman in theaters. I'm not going to be hard pressed to go see it in theaters. I was more anticipating Wonder Woman. But I'm willing to give it a chance anyway. But at the same time, the question has been since Justice League was released, what's the state of WB and DC films? We've been even talking about that on this show since almost a year ago, probably. What's going on with DC films? I mean, you have a head of Warner Brothers, and they kind of might have done something that wasn't good. Man, that's only speculation. Okay, there's speculation out there in the news, and it hasn't been confirmed that the head of the studio, Kevin Tsujihara, he's the one who's demanded all the reshoots, and he was just kind of putting it out there, and really didn't. There's little things in that, and you know what? I don't want to go too much into that, but I will say that right now, okay, as of now, we are now. There's been an announcement this past week that Walter Hamada, an executive of Warner Brothers' sister company, New Line, who overlooks smash hits like It and Conjuring, is now the president of DC Films. He will work closely with Jeff Johns to get DC films or DC movies back on track. And this is quoted. This comes from the Hollywood Reporter. Quoted. Walter is creative, resourceful, and committed to excellence, and will bring those qualities to his oversight of our superhero films. Warner Brothers President and Chief Content Officer Toby Emmerich said it in a statement. He's a terrific production executive and served as an executive producer on two of the summer's most popular films, New Line's It and Annabelle Creation. I'm confident Walter and Jeff, working with our filmmaking partners, will deliver films that will resonate with both broad global audiences as well as DC fanboys and fangirls. Walter's a great addition to the Warner Brothers Pictures team, and I look forward to working with him in this new post. Now, when I heard this, I'm thinking probably the same thing that most people were thinking. Why would you hire a guy who's been in charge of 2 horror movies to run a comic book section of your studio? Okay, well, I got my brain around that. Okay, well, movies are movies, right? Well, tomato, apples and oranges, right? Well, yeah, pretty much. But, I mean, if he's got experience running big-budget movies, then that can be a good thing because at least it's not just some stranger off the street that's just coming in just to fill a void, just so Warner Brothers can say, oh, well, we're taking care of that issue. On the other hand, I also see it as Warner Brothers just doing what they did in the past, saying, oh, well, we hired Jeff Johns, and Jeff Johns is going to be the guy to course correct us. And it feels like that's exactly what happened in the last year after Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that Jeff Johns never got enough time. Jeff Johns comes from a comic book background, and not to say that he has no idea how to produce anything. I know he's had more work in comic books and the CW verse, specifically the Flash. But to have him head a studio or that head the DC films, I mean, that could be, I don't know, maybe he's not the right guy for that. And now you have an executive producer who has credibility when it comes to blockbuster movies. And I never saw any of these movies. I know it definitely made a lot of money last year. I'm just not into horror films. Honestly, they scared the babies out of me, guys. That's probably what meant to think that I'm a Batman fan, but Batman really doesn't scare me at all, honestly. But besides the point, though, I would say that I'm taking this as good news. Maybe this is a good thing because maybe this guy can come from an outsider perspective, not so much they didn't even say if he's a fan. We haven't heard any comment or statement from him at all saying, hey, yeah, I'm so excited to be a part of this. I'm a huge Justice League fan. I'm a fan of these characters. I can't wait to really interact with Jeff Johns and bring some new fresh perspective on this. So for now, I would say that this I'm not. I'll be optimistic saying that this could be a good thing, but why not? Why would Warner Brothers not hire somebody outside of their own company? Wouldn't that be a good idea? Because maybe hiring in-house is probably where it just you keep having the same reoccurring problems where, okay, well, you're putting a Band-Aid over a wound in a sense. You're just saying, okay, well, so-and-so, you get promoted. You get a promotion. You get a promotion. You're going to do DC films now. And that's exactly where my mind is going with this, thinking, okay, well, how much longer can this go on? Maybe the problem is not so much the producers or the head of DC Films. Maybe it's the guy up at the top of Warner Brothers, and maybe the guy up there is the one that we really should be focusing on, Kevin Tsujihara, whoever makes these decisions for all the reshoots, for the recuts, and just all these plans for all these movies that might not ever happen. I mean, you know what? Maybe we'll get a Nightwing movie. Maybe we'll get this. I have a feeling we will get a Matt Reeves Batman movie unless something really, really wrong could happen. You never know. I would like to see a Batgirl movie, but at the same time, I'm thinking, you know what? One movie at a time. Just go do the standalones, do the Wonder Woman, do a separate Batman movie, and you know what? Or just wipe the clean slate. There we go. Dark Knight Rises said it best. Are you talking about the clean slate program? That's exactly what I'm talking about. I am talking about the clean slate program because you know what? It just didn't work out so well. You had great ideas, but some of these ideas just didn't work, and you haven't gotten a great response. So now it's time just to say, wipe the house clean slate, and then start from scratch. I know I've said it before. I'll keep saying it over and over again until Warner Brothers finally gets their head out of their ass. There's no other way to put it, guys. I'm sorry. And you know what? I'm a big fan. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, of Warner Brothers films. I'm a big fan, obviously, of Batman. And I'm just tired of hearing these little news stories about another producer coming in to head up DC films, another director, another Batman movie, or another Batman movie has been greenlit when we haven't even got just one standalone Batman movie just yet. So, but there is good news, at least for Matt Reeves. For those of you that we haven't really talked about the Matt Reeves Batman movie anyway. He gave an update recently when he was talking with in a Q&A session with Jeff Goldsmith recently. He was a guest on the podcast, the Q&A with Jeff Goldsmith, and what he ended up saying is, quoted, I am outlining. I have the story worked out, and I'm outlining, Reeves said about the Batman. And it's tentatively called the Batman. Who knows what he's going to end up calling it, even though the Batman is probably the best title they could probably come up with instead of another Batman Slightly Returns or something. Who knows? Reeves explained that he frequently Skypes with his Planet of the Apes co-writer Mark Bomback, so I think that he might see his name in the credits on the script. For now, Reeves is outlining his story. Recent reports, there were like rumors that were coming out that Matt Reeves was meeting with Jake Gyllenhaal to play Batman. Ben Affleck, still no idea. Said it before, and I'll say it again. I know that's my famous quote tonight. It's just, you know what, Ben Affleck, you gave us your best shot as Batman. I think you did a better performance in Batman v Superman than I did in Justice League. And I was watching even Lego Batman over the weekend. That's probably I hadn't watched that in such a long time. And I gotta say, right now, I think Will Arnett was the better Batman than Ben Affleck. I know those are fighting words, and go back and if you haven't watched Lego Batman movie, go watch that because that is a great interpretation of Batman. It is hilarious, good action, great story, and yeah, I think I wish that we had more Batman. Or I'd rather see another Lego Batman movie before I'd rather see another Batman movie with Ben Affleck. I said it. It's not that I don't like Ben Affleck's Batman. I just think he kind of. He looked kind of tired, and he just kind of was – I don't think he was as enthusiastic when he was in Justice League, so we'll leave it at that. Let me know what you have to think. But going back to the Matt Reeves Batman film, I like knowing that it seems like this guy's taking his time. He doesn't have anything else going right now. Yes, I know that there was something in the news that came out about his studio is moving over to Netflix, and what I heard about that is with that is Netflix gets the first option where – in a manner of speaking, what would happen is if Matt Reeves has an idea, he'll pitch it to Netflix, and or he has to pitch it to Netflix first, or Netflix will be the first one to get a shot at it. If they don't like it, he can take it to another studio. So that's in no way that should affect his Batman movie, from what I understand. This Warner Brothers deal was already in place, so that's nothing's going to change with that at all. Now, it's always a question of where he's going to take the story. Who knows? If he's only got an outline, honestly, I don't think you're going to see a Batman movie for at least another 2 years. If he can get the script knocked out by year's end, which is not unrealistic, not that I know too much about writing a script. I mean, some people could write a script in one day. Some people it could take quite a long time. And by the time you do rewrites and just have the general outline of it like he has, who knows? So, and it all depends on the studio, once again, what way they want to go with their Batman. I think that hopefully my bet is that Matt Reeves is going to be given more creative freedom, just like a Patty Jenkins, just like a James Wan on Aquaman, and just, hey, let him do his thing. And like I said, this can also have effect on the new producer that's coming in. I know this producer, the new head of DC Films, I've heard that he did work with James Wan. So apparently, if everything went okay there, James Wan obviously, had a good, how would I phrase this? Things ended up working out well with him and James Wan. So maybe they realized, okay, well, if they have such a good relationship on Aquaman, or other movies, then maybe this will work out for the studios. So stay tuned for more. All right. So another big thing that's happening this past week is, I think I mentioned this last week, is that there's some really funny posts out there on social media. There's always so many funny posts on there. But right now the big thing is the Snyder Cut versus the Whedon Cut. And like I said last time, the Snyder Cut is always going to be like this darker version. So if I posted a picture of Christian Bale's Batman, that would be like the Snyder Cut. If I posted a picture of, no insult to him, Adam West's Batman dancing, that would be the Whedon Cut. So kind of see where I'm going with that. So the biggest thing that fanboys are yelling about right now, and I would say that I'm probably in there because I'm more out of curiosity. Okay, it's that a lot of people want this cut of the Justice League cut or the Snyder Cut of the film. Okay, so the Snyder Cut is what we've mentioned before. There really isn't a Snyder Cut out there from what we've been told, from what we know. It's just that he shot this, he had this footage, but it was never ever put together to actually make a film. He had it screened by the executives. They said it was too dark. They wanted lighter tone, and then eventually he had to go off, and then Joss Whedon came in. So people are under this assumption that there's this Snyder cut of a film of Justice League, but what I understand is that it really doesn't exist. So what ended up happening was this past Saturday, a group of about 13 fans and DC cosplayers made it personal by showing up in front of Warner Brothers Studios, somewhere in Batman and Wonder Woman. They said that they had signs that say hashtag release the Snyder Cut, and it's pretty much just trying to get over at Warner Brothers and Burbank, California, just saying, hey, we want the Snyder Cut because guess what? Whether you like it or not, Warner Brothers, Justice League opened to a disappointing $94 million, the worst opening for a DC Extended Universe film to date. And you know what? We haven't really heard too much about it since then. So do I really think there's going to be a Snyder Cut out there that's going to get... No. I know that there are deleted scenes that keep showing up on social media. Obviously the biggest thing is just the tone, like the color tone and so forth, and that's footage. Who knows how they got it? I really have no idea. Anybody can release that, I suppose, if if they work at the studio and they want to take a chance of getting fired. Personally, I don't ever think we'll see a Snyder Cut. I'm all for seeing a different version of the Justice League. I wanted to see more of the footage that we saw in. Or the movie that was called Justice League that came out in November was an incomplete movie, okay? The editing wasn't complete yet. Everything from the CGI to the script, all over the place, but somehow it was entertaining for me. But I'd like to see just, once again, another Batman v Superman Ultimate Cut. I'd like to see a Justice League Ultimate Cut. If it's going to be Whedon's footage, which it could be, who knows? Could it be the scenes from Justice League with Barry Allen and Iris West that we never had a chance to see? Could it be the footage with Willem Dafoe and Aquaman? Those kind of scenes? Could it be the footage of Cyborg playing football that was in the trailer that we never had a chance to see? Who knows? I mean, I'm always for seeing more extended footage. Maybe they'll re-edit the film. Maybe they'll do a better job of that horrible Henry Cavill CGI mustache cover-up. Because let me just say, that is the picture that I see online the most right now. And it always cracks me up, but at the same time it disappoints me because I'm like, man, why couldn't they let him shave the mustache? Because that probably would have fixed just a few things, to say the least, of Justice League. But that's neither here nor there anyway. But going back to Justice League, we do know this, that according to iTunes advertising, the release date is going to be January. It's advertising the release date as January 23rd under the pre-order today section. So right now, as it stands, that the digital HD version of Justice League will be available on Tuesday, January 30th. That's just 2 months after Justice League hit theaters back in November. We also have no idea when it's going to be hitting Blu-ray. It could be subject to change, so stay tuned for that. Of course, I will be buying that, and once we hear more news about what's going to be happening with an extended cut, because of what's going on right now with the DC films, just like we saw with Batman v Superman, and just like we saw with Suicide Squad, don't be too surprised if you see an ultimate cut. And if that's the case, if you have that option, okay, to see that ultimate cut or extended cut, whatever they're going to call it, shell out the extra few bucks for it, guys. Trust me, it does work out better for Batman v Superman than it does for Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad, it didn't add anything. It was cool to see a little bit more Joker, a little bit more Harley Quinn footage, but at the end, it didn't make the film any better. With the case of Batman v Superman, it just made the film feel completely different because of how they organized all the scenes in it and how they added the footage. It answered some questions. Oh, okay, that's why Superman was set up, or how he was set up. Spoiler. Anyway, so, and for those of you that are, not, while you're killing time, in other words, this is such a bad transition, but I'm trying anyway. While you're waiting for Justice League to come out, there are actual great Batman movies, minus 2 that are on this list anyway, that are already available on Netflix. I put it on social media already this past week. Happy New Year, by the way. Netflix has released a complete list of every title being added to its site's lineup in January. But, of course, the most ones we care about are 5 total Batman films that have launched on Netflix. Batman, Batman Returns, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, and Batman Begins. Really, really happy about this. Do I own every single one of these Batman movies? Of course I do. Do I own them on Blu-ray? Yes. Do I own them on iTunes? I own the Nolan trilogy on iTunes. I do not own Batman or Batman Returns because they were on HBO, so I was just watching them over the holiday. I didn't think it was necessary for me to buy them again, even though I own them on Blu-ray. Same with Batman Return, Batman and Robin, and Batman Forever. But it's always great to see these movies on there, especially if, like I said, wintertime. What does that equal? Lots of just laying out, relaxing, and vegging out on the couch or your recliner, whatever you lay on, and just turning on these movies. If you want to have a Batman marathon, go for it, because I know I will be. Definitely have your own Tim Burton marathon with Batman and Batman Returns. If you want to do a Joel Schumacher marathon, if that's your cup of tea, do Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. Now, I'm really excited Batman Begins is on Netflix. I think it was on there at one time in the last couple of years or so. It's a shame that you don't see the Dark Knight or Dark Knight Rises. That way we could have the complete Nolan trilogy on there. Something I did want to mention is that this is something I'm still trying to learn about when it comes to all these HD and whatever kind of versions that are out there. 4K HD releases, or however you call it, 4K releases for the Nolan trilogy of the Dark Knight trilogy has been released, or was released is been released in December, I think it was. He also did it for his other movies, including Dunkirk, The Prestige, Inception, Interstellar. So all of those are in 4K. I imagine that just 4K is just an even better looking version of HD. So, if you still have some leftover Christmas money from all your Christmas returns, you might want to check out the 4K editions of that. I don't know if it's even worth for me to buy it right now, because I don't know if my TV has that kind of quality. It all depends on, once again, with TV. Like I said, as long as I own the HD copies, which is the way I've been going with movies lately, I own 3 different versions now of the Nolan trilogy. I own the DVDs, I own the Blu-rays, and now I own the iTunes versions of them also. No, I don't own the VHS copy of Batman or Batman Returns. I think I did donate those or give those away a long time ago. Besides, they're not worth anything. But eventually that's what it's coming to, guys, is just streaming and buying it online. But this is good news, especially if you're a Batman fan. If you're not a fan of the new DC films, that's okay, because as we always like to say, or as the saying goes, you always have the originals to go back to. So in the case of the Tim Burton Batmans and the Nolan trilogy, you can always go back and watch those. So happy viewing with that. So let's switch gears here. This past mid-December, when it comes to James Bond news, I talked about last week about Barbara Broccoli saying in the beginning of this year, we will be getting more Bond 25 news, whether it's going to be the director, whether it's going to be, more casting and so forth. But she was recently going online, and this comes from the Spy Command, who brought up this really great story. In the Hollywood Reporter Award Chatter podcast, they had Barbara Broccoli on there. And almost an hour, there was a brief exchange where the host said, "Would you ever hire a person of color or a woman to play James Bond one day? Could it be Jamie Bond?" And Barbara Broccoli replied, "Anything is possible right now. It's Daniel Craig, and I'm very happy with Daniel Craig. But who knows what the future will bring? That's what's so exciting about Bond." So nearly 2 weeks later, get this. The Daily Mail ran a story saying, "Next James Bond could be black or a woman," says 007 producer Barbara Broccoli. "Anything is possible," quoted once Daniel Craig walks away. And what that story says was asked if we could expect to see a female Bond. Emphasis added. So what ended up happening was the Mail reproduced Broccoli's comments, and big thanks to Bill Koenig over at the Spy Command, and hopefully Bill will be joining us soon. Stay tuned for that. She was asked, but it appears that she was not asked by the Daily Mail, of course. you have to listen to the original podcast, but just be careful, guys, because things can be taken out of context when it comes to news stories. So going back to the original question, as Barbara Broccoli's original statement says, anything is possible right now. It's Daniel Craig, and I'm very happy with Daniel Craig, and who knows what the future will bring, and that's what is so exciting about Bond. So, yeah, she's not saying that it could ever not be a female or it could be a person of color, but that's things were a little reworded in these news articles, so you have to be very careful from your news sources and so forth. I know I've gotten information incorrect before, but so just watch out for that kind of stuff. But looking at it from this perspective of female Bonds, I know there's still people that would like to see a female James Bond. I've talked about it many times on this show. I don't want to see a female James Bond. Would I like to see a James Bond of a different ethnicity? Absolutely. I think that it's definitely going to happen within. I think it's going to happen probably. I'd say the next 10 to 15 years, you'll definitely see a James Bond who's not just who's maybe not just maybe they'll be British, but I mean I'm not saying an Idris Elba. But I'm just saying that, it's not, don't rule it out because anything is possible. But at least keep James Bond, this is not meant to be sexist, but definitely keep James Bond as a man because James Bond is a guy. And that's, you can say, okay, well, that's how Ian Fleming wrote him as a British spy who's a man and who's white. Okay, well, there's all different types of interpretations on James Bond. There's all different types and different interpretations on Batman. No one ever says that Batman has to be exactly 6'5" or whatever. Okay, Ben Affleck fits that. Michael Keaton wasn't the exact build for a Batman Bruce Wayne, but you know what? It ended up working out really well for Michael Keaton because I still consider him to be one of the best Batmen. Christian Bale, no one would ever know that he, isn't actually an American. So anything is possible when it comes to that. I'm just saying that, eventually maybe we will see a Batman of color. Who knows? And you know what? I think people are making, those of you that are making a big deal about it, really, come on, get over it. It's the 21st century, okay? It's going to happen. There should be no problems with seeing somebody of different color being one of the greatest superheroes out there, whether it be James Bond or Batman. I think it's inevitable. And I'm more than welcome to it, but I just don't want to see a female character because I think that's something where it kind of, that's when, like I said, you should create your own spin-off. If you want to have the daughter of James Bond, I have no idea. If you want to have the niece of James Bond, if you want to have a sister of James Bond, who knows? Look at the fan fiction that's on the internet, guys. There's all kinds of stuff out there. Anything's possible, but I would like to see, at least in the next 10 to 15 years, or I think it's going to happen, that we're definitely going to see a colored James Bond. So we will see what we see with that. So here's hoping. Anyway, let's go into birthdays here. Celebrating a birthday. I know I missed a lot of birthdays near the end of the year because so much was going on with the show and vacation and whatever else. So I apologize for that. So I'm doing here, the topic of the night also is a clean slate here for myself. I'm doing a clean slate with birthdays. I'm restarting birthdays from the very beginning. The first birthday we have here in January 3rd is George Martin, composer from Live and Let Die. If there's a score that I listened to more and a movie I watched more last year, of all the James Bond movies, I'm going to say it's Live and Let Die. And one thing I love about Live and Let Die that I definitely found myself listening to more than ever once I was able to find a copy of it is the score to Live and Let Die composed by George Martin. And don't get me wrong, the Paul McCartney song Live and Let Die is great. But the score, it's just such a great 70s kind of a James Bond funk to it. And it's classy, it's fun. How he chooses to use score, when he chooses to use the score throughout the movie, especially during the boat chase. Most of that boat chase sequence where was he? Yeah, he was in New Orleans, yeah. It was pretty much quiet. He didn't have any score in there. And, during the plane chase at the airport, it was pretty much kind of quiet there, too. But I liked when he does use the James Bond theme, he definitely, emphasizes it in there, which I like seeing composers do. It's not something that he decided, okay, well, we have a new James Bond, so he's got to earn it, kind of like where David Arnold did that with, it's a different set of circumstances because Casino Royale was a reboot of James Bond, and it was supposed to be like the first James Bond mission. But whereas with Roger Moore's, he definitely made it known. He's like, okay, well, he's definitely James Bond. We're definitely going to, use the James Bond theme when there's more action or just when he's riding around New York City and so forth. So I really like that score. So if you've never had a chance to listen to that, go on to, let's see, do they have it on iTunes? I think they have it at least on YouTube. Just type in Live and Let Die complete score and listen to it on there. It's definitely awesome. Roger Spotswood celebrated a birthday on January 5th. Happy belated birthday to you. He was the director of Tomorrow Never Dies. We talked about Tomorrow Never Dies a couple weeks ago, and when it comes to that movie, like I said, I think it's one definitely worth revisiting. I think it's a fun James Bond movie. I truly do. I don't think it's the best James Bond movie, but I think I think he did a pretty good Bond movie when it comes to that. So definitely check that out. A name you might not know so well. His name is Jeep Swanson, and I know I do this every year. He played Mr. Bane in Batman and Robin. He celebrates a birthday on January 5th also. He definitely had the comic book look when you think of Bane, but how they use Bane in Batman and Robin, I don't think Jeep Swanson wants to be known for that role. But, he, especially how he was more made kind of the butt of jokes in there, in a sense. I don't know. It's that, I'm just glad that we actually got a better interpretation of Bane when it comes to Dark Knight Rises, but we will still remember Jeep Swanson to a point as the first actor on screen to play Bane. Rowan Atkinson, he celebrated a birthday on January 6th. Yes, I know I'm talking about a Bond movie that really doesn't count. He played Nigel Smallfawcett in Never Say Never Again. I think we're actually going to start talking about that movie this year on the show, especially since it might be celebrating an anniversary this year. I always think of him. I've never really I've seen a little bit of the show or the movie, whatever it was, Mr. Bean. But to see him in there with Sean Connery and Never Say Never Again, he was the comic relief in there. He was the comedy relief, and he's like, "M's begging you to come back to us. We need you," and so forth. There, my dogs again. Anyway, I liked him in there, and you know what? I could have seen him definitely in a real James Bond, in a actual Eon production James Bond movie. Next to Roger Moore, I think they would have played off each other so well. But I did like him in Never Say Never Again. One of the better parts of that. Miss Shirley Bassey celebrated a birthday on January 8th. She performed the theme songs to Goldfinger, Diamonds Are Forever, and Moonraker. While most of you know that Diamonds Are Forever is my least favorite James Bond film, I will say that her theme song to Diamonds Are Forever is excellent. It is truly excellent. Not as good as Goldfinger, and I'd probably give it to Moonraker. If I had to go in an order, Goldfinger is just top 5 Bond songs, definitely. That's another thing we're going to get to this year. We're going to get to the Bond title songs, how we rank those. Let me know what you have to think about that, but Goldfinger's definitely at least in the top, maybe I'll put it in the top 3. Yeah, definitely. Moonraker is one that I think gets forgotten, but it's such a soothing, smooth kind of John Barry's kind of Shirley Bassey theme, and it works so well for a James Bond movie, especially at least for that movie anyway. So happy birthday, man! Bernard Lee celebrates a birthday on January 10th. He played M all the way from Dr. No actually to the end in Moonraker, and whenever I think M, it's usually I always picture Bernard Lee, and I always go back all the way to just even in Dr. No, just saying 007, when do you ever sleep? This damn Beretta again, I really think he's, it's like I said, comparing apples and oranges when you compare him and Judi Dench, who's the better M. I personally think as the best female we've had, and even though she is the only female, M is obviously Judi Dench. But Bernard Lee holds a special place in my heart, I guess, because he will always be known as M. He was the first one there, and he just set such a high bar of just this boss who just gives James Bond such a hard time, even from the very beginning and to the end. 007, just how he says that, and he was, he had kind of a dry sense of humor, but it always worked out so well. Whether he was playing side next to Sean Connery, Roger Moore, even with George Lazenby, I did like that in there. this organization is not interested in your personal affairs, 007. And I just think that he was so good. Anyway, Shirley Eaton celebrates her birthday on January 13th. She played Jill Masterson in Goldfinger, another Goldfinger birthday. Yes, Miss Shirley Eaton, let me just say that the Golden Girl, she truly is the Golden Girl. If you haven't seen Goldfinger, first of all, shame on you. Pause the last 5 minutes of this podcast, go watch Goldfinger and let me know what you think. But one of the iconic Bond women, I would say, at least when it comes to, especially me and a lot of other Bond fans, is definitely Shirley Eaton's Jill Masterson. While she had such a small role in that movie, I mean, she just shined. She was so, I don't know. One, she was beautiful, and just her acting alongside Sean Connery, it was just done so well. Who are you? Bond, James Bond. And, I just think, I'm beginning to like you, Mr. Bond. I just think, just her accent. Oh, yep. Anyway, got to move on here. Question of the week. Now, disclaimer number one, I did not have a chance to tweet out the question of the week, so I actually kind of borrowed this one. Actually, I heard this one. Disclaimer number two, I heard this on Collider Movie Talk earlier today. Great podcast, by the way. They cover a bunch of movie news. But besides the point, though, a question was asked there, who would you like to see as a Bond villain? Somebody said on there, Jackie Chan, and I scratched my head. I'm like, it's not a stretch because, Martin Campbell directed this movie called The Foreigner with him and Pierce Brosnan, a former James Bond, this past year, and I heard it's pretty good. I've heard a lot of good things about it. I haven't had a chance to check it out yet. I can't see Jackie Chan being a villain though. I think if anything, he's kind of the guy you want to have as a good guy. You want him on your side, of course, because he's Jackie Chan. Somebody said Idris Elba. I like Idris Elba as a Bond villain. I think that would be up there with like choosing Javier Bardem as a Bond villain. I think that something about Idris Elba, whether you want to make him this political figure, whether you want to make him, whatever they decide to go with the next Bond villain, whether it's going to be, a man of man or woman of power, or rogue agent. Somehow Idris Elba falls into that rogue agent. I know we've seen that a dozen times, but come on, guys, we've seen world domination so many times when it comes to just billionaires trying to take over the world or trying to destroy something. So Idris Elba just seems like he could have, okay, well, I wasn't James Bond, or I'm like James Bond, but guess what? I'm a bad version of James Bond, and I'm going to kick the ever-living crap out of Daniel Craig. There's a fight I want to see. But if we're going to go in a different direction, I would say I'd like to see a female actress. I'm definitely a big proponent for this. I would like to see a rogue agent from another government, maybe, or even from the British government. Technically, we've seen that also with 006. Maybe an actress like Cate Blanchett. Margot Robbie, there's definitely one I'm a huge fan of. Kate Winslet, Penelope Cruz, Jessica Chastain. Maybe she could be like a CIA, playing both sides. I have no idea, but it's definitely something that I would like to see when it comes to that. I think that was a really great question. So, anyway, so yes, that is my timer going off. Anyway, so that wraps it up for this episode of the Batman vs. James Bond show. We got to a lot of things this week. More big things to come. Please subscribe on iTunes, rate 5 stars, and leave a nice review for me on there. I would very much appreciate it. The biggest thing that I always ask is that you share the show with your friends. Let them know there's a show that talks about the best of both worlds, Batman and James Bond, all on the same show. Follow me on all the various social media networks, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Batman vs. Bond. Follow the Batman vs. James Bond show, BatmanVSBond.com, and on the BS Podcast Network. That's BSPodcastNetwork.com. And check out all their other great shows. Like James Bond, I will return. Until next time, I'm Brian Thomas. Thanks for listening, and have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.
preceding podcast is part of the BS Podcast Network. Visit bspodcastnetwork.com for more shows just like this one, and perhaps a few that are just a little bit better.